Have you ever heard a piano speak? Not just play, but tell stories, stir emotions, and even improvise entire conversations? Oscar Peterson did that like no one else. Celebrated as one of the greatest pianists in jazz history, he turned every key into pure sonic poetry, with a technique so flawless it seemed to defy human limits. But who was this genius? How did he revolutionize jazz and captivate audiences worldwide? Today, we're diving into the life and legacy of Oscar Peterson, the man who made the piano his eternal voice. Shall we? Oscar Peterson was born on August 15, 1925, in Montreal, Canada. His full name was Oscar Emmanuel Peterson, but the world would come to know him simply as Oscar Peterson, one of the greatest pianists in jazz history. Music was a part of his life from the very beginning. His father, Daniel, worked as a railway porter but was also an avid amateur musician. He insisted that all his children learn to play a musical instrument. Oscar began his musical journey with the trumpet, but an unexpected twist would forever change his destiny. During his childhood, a severe case of tuberculosis forced Oscar to give up the trumpet, redirecting his focus to the piano. This challenging moment proved to be a turning point. He devoted countless hours to the instrument, developing an impeccable technique that would become his trademark. Another crucial factor in Oscar's development was the influence of his sister Daisy. A classical pianist and his first teacher, she introduced him to the discipline and rigor of musical study, shaping the technical foundation he would carry throughout his life. But the true turning point came when Oscar discovered the recordings of Art Tatum. He was so awestruck by Tatum's virtuosity that, at first, he considered giving up, convinced he could never reach such heights. However, instead of quitting, this experience inspired him to work even harder to craft his own mastery. A little-known fact is that, by the age of 9, Oscar was already known in his neighborhood as the miraculous pianist. At that young age, he won a talent competition on a Canadian radio station, marking the beginning of his public career. From that moment on, Oscar never looked back, paving the way for a journey that would forever change jazz. The turning point in Oscar Peterson's career came in 1949, when the renowned jazz producer Norman Granz heard one of his performances on a Canadian radio broadcast. Captivated by Peterson's extraordinary skill and unique style, Granz invited him for a surprise performance at the iconic Carnegie Hall in New York, as part of the legendary Jazz at the Philharmonic concert. This performance, in front of an audience filled with jazz elites, catapulted Peterson to international fame. It also marked the beginning of a long-lasting partnership with Granz, who became his manager and producer, shaping his career for decades to come. Oscar was profoundly influenced by artists like Art Tatum, whose unmatched technique both inspired and challenged him to push his own limits. Nat King Cole also played a significant role, with his blend of swing and sophistication shaping Peterson's early steps as a pianist and vocalist. Additionally, Norman Granz was more than just a career mentor. He was a tireless advocate for racial equality, a cause that deeply resonated with Oscar and became a defining aspect of his journey in the world of jazz. Their partnership was not just musical but also imbued with purpose and conviction. Oscar Peterson faced significant challenges, particularly as a black artist during an era of intense racial segregation. Nevertheless, his artistry transcended such barriers. He stood out as a pianist who seamlessly blended classical technique with the improvisational spirit of jazz, breaking conventions and building a bridge between tradition and innovation. Peterson defied norms by forming trios and collaborating with renowned artists, placing the piano at the forefront of performances in a field previously dominated by wind instruments. One of his first landmark recordings was the album at Carnegie Hall, 1950, which captured the essence of the performance that had so deeply moved audiences during the historic event. Another iconic moment was his rendition of Tenderly, which astonished critics with its combination of breathtaking technical virtuosity and raw emotion, heralding Oscar Peterson's genius to the world. Oscar Peterson was not just a pianist. He was a transformative force. His music transcended jazz, reaching people in a visceral way, blending technical virtuosity with rare emotional depth. In an era marked by racial segregation, Peterson defied prejudice by showing that genius knows no color, creating cultural bridges between diverse audiences. He brought jazz to crowds who may have never experienced its richness, doing so with elegance, passion, and a technique that seemed supernatural. His approach to the piano, with rapid, clear phrases, complex inner voices, and an unmistakable swing, continues to be studied by jazz musicians and even classical pianists. Compositions like Hymn to Freedom not only became standards but also echoed social causes, serving as the soundtrack to the civil rights movement and the universal desire for equality and freedom. A remarkable story about his impact involves Herbie Hancock, one of the greatest jazz pianists of the following generations. Hancock revealed that, as a young man, he was fascinated by the clarity and sophistication of Peterson's lines. He said that learning to play like Oscar was like becoming fluent in a new musical language, something that shaped his own technique and style. Today, Peterson's music resonates as a powerful reminder of the transformative power of art. He shows us that discipline and creativity can coexist, that the piano can tell stories as rich as any other medium, and that music, at its core, is a universal language. His influence is felt not only in conservatories and jazz clubs, but everywhere art seeks to transcend the ordinary and celebrate the human spirit. Oscar Peterson's final years were marked by significant challenges, particularly concerning his health. In 1993, he suffered a stroke that affected his left hand, limiting his virtuosity. Despite this, Peterson did not give up on music. He worked tirelessly to regain part of his skill and continued performing, showing that his passion for art was greater than any physical limitation. His resilience inspired not only musicians but also admirers around the world, who saw him as a symbol of overcoming obstacles and dedication to music. Oscar Peterson passed away on December 23, 2007, at his home in Mississauga, Canada, at the age of 82, due to kidney complications. While his death was not surrounded by controversy, it marked the end of an era in jazz. Many colleagues and fans expressed their sorrow, highlighting not only his genius as a musician, but also his kindness and humanity. Notable figures like Herbie Hancock and Diana Krall paid emotional tributes, acknowledging the lasting influence he had on jazz and their own careers. The news of Oscar Peterson's death reverberated deeply across the music world. Canada, his homeland, declared a national day of mourning, and spontaneous tributes began to emerge in jazz clubs around the globe. For many, it was like losing a cornerstone of jazz history, someone who not only elevated the piano to a central role in the genre, but also kept alive the essence of swing and improvisation. The impact of his death was profound. Musical institutions began creating awards and tributes in his name, and his recordings gained even more prominence in educational programs. Oscar Peterson left behind a legacy of virtuosity, humanity, and innovation, proving that music has the power to transcend barriers and touch the soul of generations. If music is a universal language, did Oscar Peterson find the purest form of communication by transforming the piano into an extension of his soul? Oscar Peterson was not just a pianist. He was a storyteller, able to capture the extremes of the human condition in every note. His legacy goes beyond recordings and concerts. He showed us that art is both a personal expression and a bond that connects us as humanity. Decades after his death, his influence still shapes musicians, inspires listeners, and redefines what it means to be a virtuoso. He reminds us that genius lies not only in technique, but in the ability to touch hearts and transcend time. Did you enjoy diving into the life and legacy of this jazz giant? Subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this. Let's explore together the lives and works of artists who transformed art and left an eternal impact on the world.